At the beginning of 2020, COVID-19 wreaked havoc, sending the whole world into a lockdown. The global economy slowly shut down, with businesses closing operations. These economic challenges did not spare the media industry, and at the time when the public needed information, journalists were either laid off or they were working in very hard conditions. The newspaper industry itself faced an almost sudden annihilation due to lockdown and social distancing as revenues went lower. The economic stress aside, an already struggling media landscape was also hit by a second virus accompanying COVID-19, the infodemic, which manifested itself in form of fake news, misinformation, and disinformation. And as an organization that is very passionate about keeping journalism alive, we went out to document the impact of COVID-19 to the media industry in Uganda. This very video you're watching is part of a 12-part series featuring media managers answering some of the questions that you'll be watching. Enjoy.
I think there were many cases. There are still many cases now. Good thing is that now we have the capacity to do testing. But when COVID began, there were no capacity. It was very few stations for testing. And we couldn't get the best out of the pandemic. I think also what we missed out was the things that come along with COVID, as in the poverty, the job losses, we've seen a lot in media about gender-based violence, but we did not go deep into how much it actually did impact the country. So the underlying things that were coming along with COVID, I think were not covered. We all focus now on COVID and the politics and the COVID, but we forgot the most important thing is how did it impact the country in terms of the community, the lifestyle, and so forth. And that's one thing that we need to go back and look into.
I've just written a journal article which is about to be published on media reportage during the COVID crisis in Uganda. And the data from the field that I analyzed shows that the media industry in Uganda prioritized COVID. In bulletins, actually, especially news, because my focus was on news, not any other content. In the news, from March till the end of June, COVID-related stories took the lion's share in bulletins and even in terms of the lead stories. The biggest challenge that we still have, and it's not new, it's not only related to COVID reportage, but it's a general problem in journalism, that the way the stories were angled were mostly in a controversial manner, scandalizing. That was the only challenge. That not much emphasis was put on education, sensitization, the risk groups. When you analyze, you do a content analysis of the stories, you realize that less emphasis was on those, there was less emphasis on those things. Yet they are very, very important. Focus on the risk groups, the sensitization, the education. Very critical if you to fight a pandemic at the level of COVID-19. Most stories were scandalizing, focusing on the controversy, the bickering between the politicians, and those other things. So I think that's where the problem was. But in terms of the media appreciating that this is a very serious crisis that we've got to prioritize in our reporting, I think they did. They played a very important role. The lessons we ought to learn as media managers, as reporters, is that if another crisis of this type emerges or breaks out, God forbid, what lessons have we learned for us to be able to report in a much better way for the good of our societies.
It could have been done better, response, what actions are being taken could have been reported better. The effectiveness of those actions could have been, again, the whole questioning thing. If you're told that we've put people in quarantine, but what's the status of that quarantine? How many people are there? What exactly is happening there? Personally, I did see many gaps because I had just come from abroad myself and I was literally quarantined myself. I could see that there were many things that were not coming out in the media, and they were very basic things. Things like are people being followed up on? I did write about this. People were not being followed up on, and yet the ministry was reporting that we have everybody being contacted, everybody being followed up. And so it's important that during a pandemic, all the angles are looked at. Now, the disappointing thing is that there was a lot of conspiracy theory that was circulating on social media. I had to tell people not to send me. There were people who were very good at circulating those things, and one by one I told them, please don't send me any COVID-related conspiracy. And I had to be firm on that. And then they would say, but you're a media person, how can you? Because I said, most of it was fake, first of all. Most of it was not verifiable. Most of them had no sources. And much of that information was circulating. Now, the mainstream media could have done the public a little bit of more favor and investigated some of those conspiracies, where they were coming from, what kind of fear they were creating in people, and how were people actually responding to them or dealing with them. Are people believing them? If people suddenly hear that you can drink some sort of thing and be okay and be insulated from getting COVID-19, are they believing it? Those are stories that I would have wanted to see as a person. I would have wanted to see that there is follow-up on all the information, misinformation that was there, and deal with them squarely.
Talking about authentic voices, I loved talking about communities. The story, if we tell stories based on what, let's say, the president is saying about COVID, I don't know, but I wouldn't have a lot of attention paid to that myself if there's a community story to tell. If there's someone in the community who has something to say about the effect of COVID-19 on their income, on their lifestyles, on their work, on their, everything around them, that is a story I would give a lot of attention.